Hello, everyone. This is Martin Willis. Welcome to the show. And if you've listened to our past shows, you remember the intro, and that music is actually by our guest tonight, Mark Stanley. And I'm going to play the whole song, and it's called Blue Shadows by Mark Stanley, and our guest is coming up right after that.
Find her in the blue shadows. When the sun is gone, she dances with the moon. I watch her by the fire, coolness of the night. I feel my desire rising with a light. I died in her arms and I'd live in her eyes, and I'd love her 1,000 times before the sun began to rise. You'll find her in the blue shadows. When the sun is gone, she dances with the moon. Of the river, she moves through the grass. So much I would give her if only she would ask. It's what she never says, it's the unopened door makes me watch and wonder, makes me want her more. In the blue shadows, in the blue shadows, when the sun is gone, she dances with the moon. Dances with the moon.
Well, that's a great tune, and that's Blue Shadows by our guest this evening, and he is joined by Michael Tweed. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. How are you, Martin?
So first of all, Michael, you are a documentarian. I guess that's what you'd call someone like you, someone that makes documentaries, and you're doing actually a film coming up on Mark. But let's talk quickly about you, and then we'll talk to Mark and about his whole story.
Sounds good. Mark and I kind of grew up together, so we've known each other quite a long time. And I watched Mark's musical involvement for years. And when he became ill, I thought, what a perfect opportunity for me to segue from shooting stills for the Associated Press and the New York Times to becoming a filmmaker. And we sat down and worked on putting together a script and interviews and background and the whole 9 yards. And that's basically where we're at right now. We're ready to go as soon as we can make some money or get some money to start.
Yeah, always
Finish. Yes.
always the tough part. The tough part of the equation is the funding. Now, have you done anything like an Indiegogo or anything like that?
Actually, we have a foundation, and so we've been trying to do it on our own. We're meeting with another filmmaker from Marin County middle of the week, next week, and she's really behind the story, and she has creative ways of funding. So I think we're pretty well at the crossroads.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. And I know we talked a little bit ahead of time, and I know how involved, once you have all the footage shot, then you go into the editing room, and that's where all the magic happens. And it's tedious and very time consuming. What would you expect? How long that it would take something like this for you to create it and get it ready for?
We have a shooting schedule of approximately 45 days, and that can obviously change in a heartbeat. The post is going to take quite a lot longer, probably, 4 to 6 months possibly, depending on how we do the sound. If we want to do, a really, I guess, a surround type sound 5.1, which would be nice because with all the music that we're dealing with. And then we want to culminate it with a concert in the Bay Area here with Mark and all his friends. And we want to film that as well and add that as a bonus DVD.
Isn't that nice? That's great. So, Mark, let's talk about your story. You started out really, really young. Music was your passion. And this is basically another story. I've done a similar show. This is basically about survival and what you did to survive and move on from tragedy. But your music is beautiful. And you actually listened to another show that I have, and you sent me, that's how we actually met. You sent me a clip. You wrote about Roswell, which is pretty...
right.
So I want to know also, besides your musical background, how you got started, what it was like growing up around music, and music was everything. But also, at some point, I want to ask you why you wrote the song about Roswell.
Okay. Well, the Bay Area back in the 50s, especially like with clubs like the Hungry Eye and the Purple Onion, was becoming kind of a real great place for musicians. The Kingston Trio and all these acts were coming into the Bay Area. My parents went to a Kingston Trio concert at the Hungry Eye and brought this record home of theirs, and I went crazy over it. I mean, literally, that's all I did was listen to this record. I learned every word. I was 3 years old, and so they had to buy the next album, of course, and the next one, and there was a guitar laying around the house, and I picked it up and just taught myself how to play. And that's how I started to write songs, actually, is I couldn't read music, so I couldn't play other people's songs, so I started to write my own songs to have a song to play. So that's how my songwriting started, was so I could have something to play when I sat around the house. And then, the neighbor down the street was into music, and we started a little duo together, and then that grew into a foursome, and all through high school I had a band. We played all the colleges and high schools and in clubs, and so it was my passion since I can remember.
Now, was there a time where you just said, this is what I'm going to do? Like, this is it?
Yeah, I was 3 years old. That's the truth. I mean, I never thought, even when I was in high school, I found out later that the teachers would tell their assistants, give Mark a B on this test, because he's not going to go anywhere other than to play music. In fact, my principal in my high school called me into his office my senior year and said, Mark, if you sing 2 songs at your graduation, we'll make sure you get your diploma. I said, I'll even sing 3 if you want. I knew right. I mean, I just knew since I was a kid that I was not going to do anything else. So, and my parents knew it. They didn't even fight it. So, yeah, I knew right away. That was it.
I know how hard it is. Any of the arts, you can have a real strong passion, but it's really hard to get by unless you get really lucky. So, did you have to do other things for, like in between or as as you were going along, or was it just that?
You mean like did I ever have a job?
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah.
No, I never had another job. I made all my living from playing and singing.
Wow. Wow. That's
So I always, I was playing 3, 4, 5, usually 5 nights a week.
wow. So you were actually in
yeah.
what I consider a really good area for that. There's a lot of really good music, a lot of good places, venues to play. Yes.
Especially then, back in the '70s. I feel sorry for kids now that play, because when you go to a dance or something at a high school, it's all, they're playing CDs or records, or there's a DJ. And we were lucky that all the high schools and junior high schools and colleges hired us as, to play the dances. It was a good way to get experience. And, you could be lousy, you could be terrible for a while and learn your chops, so to speak. I don't know where kids do that nowadays.
So now you actually, did you actually record fairly young as well?
My first album came out in I did a single back in 1980. So what was I, about 24, 25? That was my first release I had. And my first album came out in 84. I did an album about every 3 years. I think I've got 6 or 7 albums out. Mm-hmm. So I started in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think about music today? All the free music available. Does that make it really hard for a musician?
Very, very hard. In fact, I've talked about to friends who say the same thing. It's hard to make money anymore because, people put stuff on YouTube, they go listen to it for free, or somebody buys a CD and they burn 4 copies of it for their friends. When we were kids, you couldn't burn a record. You had to go out and buy it if you wanted to own it. So, yeah, it's really hard to make money anymore unless you're a really huge act.
Is there another side of that coin? In other words, is there also better exposure as well at the same time?
Right. Yeah, I knew. Yeah, there is. There's more exposure. Just so much lost revenue. That's why a lot of people have to go out on the road more. They're making their money from their concerts, not from their the selling of their music. Like I said, unless you're a huge act.
It's almost like a lottery. If your music gets out there and gets picked up, then you become the big star. It's almost the opposite way of working now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And what do, as far as what are the big record labels doing? I'm only asking these questions because I don't know the answers. Maybe a lot of other people do, but what are the big labels doing to survive the changes?
Boy, you got me. I don't know. It's a very good question. Yeah, good question. I don't know, Martin, what they would be doing as far as that goes. I guess iTunes.
Yep.
Selling your music on iTunes because people have to buy it there.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where they're making. I know my friend Buffy, who was John Stewart's wife. She gets a check because now that he's died, she gets all the revenue from his stuff, and that's where she's getting most of her bulk of her income is from iTunes.
I know when I lived in Marin County that there was a lot of musicians in the area. So let's just quickly go over the ones you're aware of that are like in Northern California. I remember, a lot of Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, and I know there's tons of them. There's some metal groups, heavy metal. I'm trying to remember, a friend of mine used to be one of their people on the road. So there's a lot of people in the Northern California that are in the music industry.
Yeah, there always have been. Santana,
oh, yeah, right,
like you said.
Right,
yeah.
Eddie Money came out of Berkeley.
From Journey.
Yeah.
Was in fact one of the guys from Journey lived in Lafayette, who I'd see quite. Eddie Money lived here for a while too, actually.
I think he still does.
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, the Bay Area has always been a kind of a music hub. I think people love to live here.
Yeah, that's true. It is.
That's the cause, sort of, for that.
Right. Yeah, it's a beautiful area and really nice for weather, year round. And are there still a lot of concerts going on where someone like young and coming up can actually participate in
Boy, not that I don't get out that much. Say something, Michael?
All the clubs that were around back in the 70s and 80s have all seemed to disappear. The Keystone and Long Branch and all the clubs where you could go see two or three bands, local bands, and get a beer, and they just seem to have all vanished.
And I don't think they, like, I used to open up for names. I opened up for Jerry Garcia, Roger McGuinn, who else? And I'm not even sure that they do that anymore. They kind of have the main act. That's why I was saying it. So I think it's so much harder for up and coming musicians to find venues and places to kind of learn how to get better. You know, to get that experience. I just don't know what's out there anymore. But now that I'm older, I don't tend to go out to those places anyway to look for them.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say the pinnacle of your musical career was? Basically, was it like toward when the things changed for you? Did you feel like you had a lot going on at that point?
Yeah, things were, I was kind of it was funny because I was just starting to I just had done a album in Austin, Texas with Mark Coleman, who was Carole King's producer and who was Dan Fogelberg's guitarist. I got one of my favorite female singers, Sarah Hickman, to come and do a couple of duets with me. Came back and it was selling. I was starting to do more shows where I was just doing my originals, not doing some. I would do a lot of covers earlier, and so things. And I had just gone to LA to start the next album, which I was really excited about, with Mark Bonilla, who is my producer down there. He's playing with who now? He was with Keith Emerson, played with Chicago. Who else is he? He's been
Ronnie
with
Montrose.
Ronnie Montrose. So we were working on this new album. I had just gone to LA. We did 2 or 3 songs. I came back, and then I got the bacterial meningitis.
Okay, so I guess we can talk about exactly what happened. I know it's kind of early in the show already to talk about that, but so we more or less have already established that things were going great. Basically, this is what you wanted to do and nothing else. It was your total passion. You can tell.
Yeah.
I personally think you're very talented, and I'm sure a lot of people out there do. So let's talk about how that whole thing happened.
Well, my daughter was in the 4th grade, and I volunteered to go on this field trip for a couple of days up to the Gold Country in Northern California. And we left on a Wednesday, and I didn't feel great. I had sort of a sore throat, but I didn't want to back out because it was the last minute, and I was one of the chaperones, and I didn't think they'd be able to get anybody. And so I went, and it was really hot up there. It was like 90 degrees. We had to do all these hikes, and we lived in these little barracks and stuff, and I just was feeling worse and worse as the days went on. We came back on a Friday night, and I woke up Saturday with just the worst sore throat I've ever had in my life, and a fever of 105. And I was supposed to do a show for this corporation that day. And I thought, oh God, I'll just go get through that concert, I'll play it, and I'll just come home and collapse into bed. So by about 3 o'clock, I thought, I can't make this show. So I called them to tell them I couldn't do it. And I was going to head to the couch to lay down, and I collapsed. I split my head open on a table. And that saved my life, actually, because if I had gone to the couch and laid down, I would have fallen asleep and never woken up. So the ambulance showed up, and I got to the hospital, and the doctor said, this guy's on life support right now. So he figured out something was going on. That was Saturday. So I woke up Thursday, and my fingers were all black, like I had frostbite. And so he said, well, that's gonna go away. But another doctor kept telling me, no, it's not gonna go away. So finally, they realized that wasn't gonna happen, and they came in and said, we gotta amputate your fingers. And I thought, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? So they sent me home for a couple of months because I couldn't get insurance to pay for it. So finally, the surgeon said he was going to do it for free if they wouldn't pay for it. But a friend of mine who's an attorney who deals with that stuff got insurance company to pay for it. Wow. So I was pretty depressed because I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I told you before, I never had a job doing anything else.
Right. So first of all, how does someone actually contract this disease?
They don't know. They said I could have taken a sip off of somebody's glass that had it and had the bacteria was on the glass. They never figured out how I contracted it. So it's one of those, it had been going around. I'd seen a couple things in the paper about people who'd had it who had died in the Bay Area.
Really?
And the funniest thing is I thought, I'm going to get that. Isn't that weird that I would think that?
That's strange. Wow.
It was like I knew it. I remember thinking, I'm gonna get that, because there was about 3 or 4 cases and they all died. So they gave me a 10% chance of surviving, and luckily somehow I did. Guess I'm too mean or something.
Now, when they gave you that 10% chance, was that early on?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I was in a coma at that point, so I hadn't heard that. They were telling my mom and my dad and my brother that we don't think he's gonna survive this. In fact, they called my dad up, and he had to come up from down near Paso Robles and come up because they didn't think I was going to survive by the 3rd day I was in there.
Wow.
One of the interesting things about that disease is you or I, Martin, could be a carrier and never get the disease, but we could sneeze and it could land on somebody such as Mark, and they come down with a full-fledged case of it. There's also, not interestingly enough right now, Pfizer, I believe, makes a vaccine that you can take at the age of 18, which is about the right age because that's when you start to become social and sharing glasses and beers and all that good stuff. So, yeah, you and I could be the carrier that could give it to someone without ever getting it.
So how contagious are you as when you have it? I mean, do people have to, did they have to be real careful around you?
Yeah, in fact, all the nurses had to wear masks. They had me in a room with a sliding glass door, and I was away from everybody. And all the kids that were on that, there must have been 200 kids on that because there were about 3 or 4 different schools, all had to come and get a shot. They were all lined up down here at the school getting a vaccine for it. So you're pretty contagious, I guess. Michael knows more about it than I do.
Yeah, the kids must have really liked you then.
Yeah. Well, I went when I started teaching at that school. The principal was had been my 6th grade teacher. He got me a job there. One of the kids said, "Do you know all the problems you caused when you got sick?" And I said, I heard.
I bet. Now, all right. So, Michael, I guess I'll ask you this since you're a little bit more up on this. Now, is this any type of worldwide or nationwide? I don't want to say epidemic, but
It's not an epidemic except in areas such as Africa, which has the most cases of bacterial meningitis. India is pretty bad too. It's usually, I guess, the worst cases or the worst areas hit are areas that have the least amount of money and funding, and modern medicine, I guess, would be part of it. In California, in recent, I think we have approximately, in the United States, there's approximately 1,000 to 2,000 cases per year. So that's how much we have it in control. And hopefully it can go down. As I mentioned, there's a vaccine. And
are you there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah.
Okay. The screen just went weird.
Oh, wow.
the screensaver just went up.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, in the United States, we pretty well have a handle on it as far as I mean, one case is one too many, but it's not nearly as bad as worldwide.
So did they ask you, like, right away, Mark, have you traveled out of the country and where are the places you've been or anything like that?
No, they didn't ask me that at all, actually. He, when I first got to and I had sweatpants on, and he had pulled them down, and he said, "Where'd you get all these little red dots all over you?" And I didn't know that I had them. What it was all my blood vessels were breaking.
Wow.
So it looks like you've got measles, kind of. But, like I said, he had me on life support so fast that I was pretty much out of it pretty quickly after I got to the hospital. But then I came to. He never. Well, he knew where I. By then, he knew where I had gone to. It was quite a thing on the news here. It was on all the newspapers and all the different local stations were on it.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of camped outside my house for a couple of months.
Wow. So when something like this happens, what I don't really understand exactly what happens without it being too graphic. Can you explain exactly what this disease or I guess infection actually is?
Well, when all those blood vessels start to break, then that's why my fingers and toes got amputated, because the blood flow stops. So it looks just like you've got frostbite because, the blood's not making it to a lot of people lose legs and arms. I was lucky in a sense that that's all I lost. Were you going to say something, Michael?
No.
Oh, okay. So I said I was lucky I didn't lose more, really.
Right. Does it affect your organs as well, or is it just like a?
Yeah, it can. It can definitely. Yeah, they did a lot of tests on my liver and kidneys and heart and all that stuff. So in fact, they thought I had some sort of a heart problem at first, and then the heart surgeon or the specialist came in and said, "No, your heart's fine." I don't know what they saw at first, but it ended up being okay. Thank God.
Yeah. And so what about long-term effects? Of course, losing your fingertips, we're going to talk more about that, but what are some of the long-term effects of this?
There isn't any really. Once they saw that everything was, other than, my organs were okay, once you're healed, you're healed.
Oh.
I remember one guy came into my hospital room and said to the doctor, "Can you get this again?" And the doctor kind of got angry. You can, but he didn't want to talk about the next time I was going to get it, because he kind of thought maybe like it was one of those diseases like the measles that once you got it, you wouldn't get it again, but you exposed to it. But
I guess that would be the final straw. That one, you wouldn't make the 10% on that one.
No, I don't think I. No. Well, one of the reasons I did survive is that I was young. I was 45. I wasn't like I am now, 61. So being younger was on my side as far as surviving it. One thing.
All right, now let's talk about what it was like inside your head. That's that must have just been one struggle after another, because all of a sudden your life has totally changed. And a depression, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Well, it's like it changes so fast from one day to the next. It's your life you had's over, essentially. So I came home and just really depressed, obviously, and parents, you can go sing and you can go play again. You'll figure out it. And I think I don't want to be the guy that everybody comes to see play because he doesn't got his fingers, like I'm some sideshow from some circus or something. But the thing that I was lucky was that I had so much support from the community and friends, and from playing all these shows and concerts for years and years and years in this area. I just had a lot of support that probably a lot of other people wouldn't have gotten, and that's what really saved me. I think was just people were coming by the house and sending me letters and emails, and just a lot of people helped me through this. I just was really, really lucky that way.
I bet. I mean, I can't imagine, things turning upside down any more than they possibly could for you, basically, because unless maybe if you lost your voice, I guess that might be, but still probably secondary to your playing. Yeah. And how do you fill the hole of not playing anymore?
Well, see, that's where when I got back to that principal calling me up, it was sort of, he called me. He said, "Mark, two of the teachers need an aide in their first grade class. Do you want to do it?" And I remember thinking, I don't know if I want to do that. And I thought, well, I got to get off my rear end and do something. So I said, yeah. I went down and interviewed with them, and they said, yeah, we want you to be our aide. And that was, that was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. because I ended up working with these kids. And kids are funny. They don't care about your fingers. In fact, a lot of them thought it was really cool. I said, well, don't go home and cut your fingers off because you think that's really cool. But it really helped me through my depression, because you get out of yourself.
Right.
Then it's all about them. You're thinking about them, and then I thought, even though I can't play the guitar, I can show other people how to play. Everything's still in my head on what I did. So then I started to teach kids how to play guitar.
Wow.
Which was really, really nice. So I got to kind of get back into music. And then I sat for about a year with a guitar in my lap thinking, how can I play this thing again? I got to figure, because that's all I ever did. I mean, I played when I was hungry. I played when I was happy. It didn't matter. So I sat with the guitar in my lap and started to figure out how to do little abbreviated versions of chords. Wow. And kind of started to play again. I mean, I can't play like I used to, but enough that I'm doing shows again.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, pardon my ignorance for this, but what about like a steel guitar? Is that something you can play chords on?
Yeah, it's funny. People ask me, or the slide guitar. Yeah, which I could do, but I just never had any interest.
I don't blame you.
That. I don't know. Don Ho died. Is that why? I wanted to play like I could play before. I wasn't even interested in that one when I could play. So, but like I said, I've figured out enough now that I can sort of get by. I do get frustrated sometimes, and I want to do something that I've got in my head, and I can't physically do it.
All right. Well, what about?
Certainly.
Pardon me. What about? Now, there's a little strange delay on my side, just to let you know. I hate to say this live, but it's just the buffering software. So a lot of times I have to hesitate on my side. You won't notice it on your side, I don't think. You might.
Okay.
So what is it like as far as now being a creative person? You must have like songs come in your head still today. Do you actually write music now, or have you learned how to do that?
Not really. I've tried. I've written one song, which is actually the title where Michael got the title for this film, called "Living in the Light," that I wrote for these kids at the school in Oakland that I go and play for. The thing when I wrote, like when you heard on Blue Shadows, is a lot of the sort of the intricate guitar stuff that I can't do anymore. So you should be able to write a song with 3 chords. I mean, there are millions songs. So that shouldn't really be an obstacle for me. But for some reason, I've lost that desire to write. I've got to get it back again, though, because I used to love to write songs.
Okay, so let's play. Can we play one of your songs? How about? Can you talk about "Next Summer"? Let's talk about that song.
"Next Summer" isn't my only instrumental I've ever written, because Mark Bonilla is an incredible instrumentalist and writes a lot of instrumentals. And so when he was going to produce this album called "Breathing of the Sky," I wanted to write an instrumental for us to work on, because I knew that was sort of his strong point. And I wanted to write a song that sort of made you feel warm, like summer does. And this was one song. I woke up one morning, rolled over in bed, and turned the radio on, and it came on the radio the second I turned the radio on. It was really funny. I had no idea it was going to be on. It was like somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Turn the radio on." And it got a lot of radio play in the Bay Area. So anyway, that's the story behind Next Summer.
Okay, so here it comes. Another beautiful song. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of the things I was thinking while I was listening to the song is, what
Back in 1947, a UFO crashed in Roswell.
I have no idea where that's coming from.
So I was asked to write a song for this big festival they had down there.
Is this your song, by the way?
It's called Out of the Sky.
Yes, this is me doing Out of the Sky live.
Is that something you sent me?
No.
Okay, I have to find it. It's not open. We're going to enjoy it while it's playing, though.
Thank you. That's a great song.
When the sun came up that day, pieces of some machine no one had ever seen. And out of the sky it fell, into the light it fell, but don't ever tell. Out of the sky it fell. In the desert wind, as if it had never been carried off somewhere, but it once been there. Nothing left behind for anyone to find. Not a single trace left from this time and place. Out of the sky it fell, in July it fell, but don't ever tell. Out of the sky it fell.
Okay, it still has some more to go, but I just wanted to. Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that at the bottom of the link on the web page that the other song is hosted on, that's where that showed up, and it just started playing down on the very bottom. So,
okay.
But anyway, here we are back again, and so that was a little bonus song.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for
right.
that. And what is it? Out of the Sky It Fell? Is that the name of that one?
Out of the Sky, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So since that landed on that serendipitous, I can't even talk. Let's talk about the genesis of that song.
Well, just kind of how I met you, Martin, was I've always been interested in UFO since I was a little kid. And there was a festival down in New Mexico, and they called me to ask me to write a song for it. I don't know how. They got in touch with me. I don't remember it anymore. So I said, yeah, I would be glad to write a song about it. So I wrote that, and then Mark Bonilla and I went down to him in L.A. when we recorded it. In fact, that was him playing guitar with me on that live show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if they ever used it or not. I can't remember. It's been about 20 years now since I wrote that. I forget what happened with it. But that's how that happened, was that they called and asked me to write something.
Ah.
Not sure they used it. But yeah, my interest in UFOs was where that came from.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess what I was talking about was I was thinking about when someone goes through something like what you went through, it can be all-consuming. And you said you got out of yourself, which I think is something that could really help a lot of people, because I've heard of situations where people just become so self-absorbed in some miserable, horrible thing that they can't think of anything else, and the only way they can get out of it is if they help someone or do something that gets their mind out of that. So what about the
Right.
late hours at night when you're by yourself and
Yeah, that's when it would hit. I remember I'd lay in bed and I'd wake up and I'd look at my fingers and, is that real? It just looks so foreign to see your fingers look. And I remember this man used to come and see me play who was an ex-motorcycle cop who had lost his leg in an accident. And he said, Mark, he goes, you'll get used to how they look. And I remember thinking, I'll never. And he was right. And now they look so normal to me that it would look weird to have fingernails. But like I was saying, to transfer all your energy to something else really helps. So you're not just thinking about, and I had a daughter too, and I thought I can't just fold up into a ball and wallow
Right.
in this. I wanted to be an example for her that you move on and you do what you have to do, and I wasn't going to let it destroy me. I just couldn't do that. It's not me. I think most people, 99 people out of 100 would do the same thing. Because what's the alternative, really?
Yeah.
And when I go and I talk to a couple of the schools, high schools, they show the film, and one thing I learned is it's amazing how bad and hopeless you can feel one day, and a week later how everything can flip on a dime and how wonderful you can feel. Something can happen. I always say, just wait. Just wait, because you never know what's going to happen that can really make you feel great and get you out of a depression, because it's true.
Right. So what about the first film? How did that all happen? And then, of course, Michael, we want to talk about what you're up to with the second one.
Well, Jean Strauss, who made the film, she's an author. She did a couple of books with Liesl from The Sound of Music, and a couple other. And she was an adoptee. She did a book called Beneath a Tall Tree. She called me and said, I want to write a book about what happened to you. And I said, I don't want to do that, because I just didn't want to do it. So about 6 months later, she called. She said, what if I do a documentary? And I said, yeah, that would be okay if we did that. And I had known her since grammar school as well. So she knew, we weren't friends or anything, but we knew of each other, one of those kind of things. So she was living in LA at the time, so she'd come up about every couple of weeks and just interview me, and that was a nice way to kind of get rid of all that depression too, to kind of talk it out. She did a really nice job on you've seen it, I think,
yes,
right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. And she came to the school I was at and filmed me with the kids and stuff.
Now, is there any type of public support in any type of way that someone can also get that is going through something like what you went through?
Not that I know of. I mean, I even thought about going to a psychologist at first, and to help me get out of the depression. But like I said, I had so much support from Pete Townsend from The Who. He and I emailed for a while, because he thought he wasn't going to be able to play. He had fallen off his motorcycle or his bicycle and really hurt his wrist. And so he and I emailed back and forth. He helped me, talked me through it too, which was really nice. Having another musician, guitar player. So I was just really lucky that I didn't have to go and get. But Michael, do you know of anything?
Yeah, there's Friends of Meningitis and the Angels, which are nurses, and they put together some sites that you can easily find on the web. And Facebook has a surviving meningitis page. So there's a lot of people that are reaching out at this point. I think it's become, like I said, something that we can pretty much eradicate with the vaccine. So
now, is there a similarity to other types of meningitis? Like I've heard of spinal meningitis, and so are there other meningitis besides the bacterial and spinal?
Not that I know of. I think those are the two. Spinal isn't nearly as dangerous as bacterial.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to get one of the two, get the spinal one of the two. That's only two I've ever heard of as well, is the spinal.
Yeah.
Neither one of them's good, but I mean.
Yeah. So, Michael, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing and what the possible differences of the first film that.
Well, the difference between what we're doing now is the Gene's.
Sorry, I missed that.
Siri wants to join the conversation. Gene's film dealt with Mark right during the trials and tribulations of dealing with his disease and the after effects. Ours is going to talk about the beginning of Mark's life and how music has been a big part of it, including the part he told you about from 3 years old on. I mean, as long as I've known Mark, it's been music. I mean, that's the common thread that a lot of our friends have, is we've all played music and all played in bands and so on. But anyway, what this film deals with is Mark's growing up, his musical influences, including John Stewart, Frank Sinatra, Louis Prima.
The Beatles.
The Beatles.
You forget the Beatles. Yeah, like that.
But then it's going to go right into the catastrophe of getting hit with the meningitis and how he came through that. But the big part is how he's doing today and what he's doing and performing. In fact, in July he's playing a performance at Armando's with Mark Bonilla and a lot of local musicians, and that's the part that we're trying to celebrate, that says, you know, you can get through this, and Mark has proven that there is life after meningitis. You know, he taught himself how to play, retaught himself how to play the guitar in a whole new way by putting it on his lap and using what pieces of his fingers there are, and we deal with that. And in fact, there's about a 6-minute scene where Mark is just sitting with the guitar in my living room talking about how he put his finger down on the guitar, and he goes, "Oh, that would be, I can make an A with this," and he makes an A chord. And if I just move my thumb over here, I'm actually doing it. You can't see it. I'm actually fretting like Mark does. I can make an A minor, and
I use my knuckle and my thumb. But I think Michael also wants to concentrate on getting some vaccines promoted.
One of the things I would like to do is, after the movie is finished, is tour college campuses. Mark and we talked about this, getting a Winnebago or something and just doing a road trip where we play the film and then talk about meningitis and the ways that you can prevent it, you know, as simply as not sharing a Coke or a beer, and to getting the vaccine. So yeah, one of my goals is to eliminate bacterial meningitis in at least our country, if not many, many more.
Well,
so it's not only is it a triumph over tragedy, it's also an educational film too. It's spiritual and positive, and
For prevention.
Yeah, exactly. So that, you know, there's a lot to this movie, and if anybody's interested, you can always reach me at michael@tweedphoto.com, especially if you have money. We have a nonprofit, so we can give you a nice big write-off. Thank you.
Ta-da.
you're welcome to plug. Yes. So, Michael, you mentioned earlier that someone could be a carrier and not even know it. Do they have, like, statistically the amount of carriers that are out there? You know, I mean, do people really have to watch about sharing a Coke and stuff like that?
I think when you're younger, that's when you're more susceptible. As from what I've read, as far as numbers go, I don't know that you can ever count that, because unless you were tested to see if you were a carrier, like I said, you might not ever know. You could go your whole life and never get sick.
You know, one thing they told me, Martin, that I remember now, that it can live in your nasal passages for 5 or 6 years, and you get run down and not feel well, and then you can't fight it off.
Mm.
Where, you know, if you're feeling good and healthy, and it can be there, but it's not taking over.
Wow. So it's almost like an immune type of thing. If your immune system gets worn.
Yeah, I didn't feel well. I went on that trip, and I was tired, and when I came back Friday, I went out on a date that night. I didn't want to tell the story, which I shouldn't have done, and stayed
That
out
was
late.
a stick that broke the camel's back, probably.
I think it was, actually.
Yeah.
I really do. You hit the nail right on the head. I think that was maybe if I had come home and gone to bed, maybe I would have woken up and fought it off. But I did too much to where I just couldn't fight it anymore.
But you're saying this could be living like within you somewhere for like 5 years. So
That's what
so
they
another
told me.
time
Yeah.
when you became worn or fatigued, it could have happened just as easily, right?
Right. That's how I took it when the doctor told me that. Was that you get too worn down and run down, then you can't fight it off. So, not sure that's the case, but that's what he told me.
So the vaccine you talked about, Michael, how important would you say it is that someone like college age or something like that actually gets that taken care of?
I think it's very important. My daughter's in her 30s now, probably pretty safe from it, but obviously not. But I would encourage all parents to talk to their doctors and their children. And I don't know that I've read anything negative about the vaccine. Tenemba is what it's called. But talk to your doctors. I think you'd find most doctors would be very encouraging of it. And I don't think it costs all that much, and I'm sure it's covered by insurance. And if it's not, Mark's got a good attorney that can help you with it.
Well, they're saying it's prisons, it's college camp, dormitories that barracks for the armed services that where it's spread the most.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
That confinement.
Right.
Right. In close proximity to each other.
And it doesn't, you mentioned third world countries, places like that, but there's no type of incubating it in any type of climate or it doesn't necessarily associate with like dirtiness or anything like that, does it?
Not that I know of. It's an airborne type of transmission, I guess. I don't know that temperature, climate, or any of that plays in. I've not looked into that, and that's a good question, actually.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, all the nurses had to wear masks when they would come into my room, so it must be airborne to some degree, I guess.
Yeah, I had to wear a mask when I visited you.
Did you?
Yeah.
Now, are you still a carrier of this, Mark?
No. No, I'm not anymore.
And
Yeah.
so once it runs its course, basically.
Yeah, I think you're done with it. It's out of here. Once they put me on all those antibiotics, they got rid of it. It was gone.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't let you be around people if they thought it was still, if you were a carrier.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, I think we want to talk about the last song you wrote. Let's talk about how that all came about.
Is that the one I
Yes,
sent
that's
you?
right,
You're talking
yes.
about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the last song I recorded. I was about to do a new album, and I'd gone down to L.A. and recorded a couple songs. A little side note: Lee Sklar is playing bass. I'm not sure for the music fans out there. Lee Sklar played bass on all of Jackson Browne's albums. James Taylor. He's touring with Phil Collins right now. But he came in as a kind of a special guest and played the bass guitar. So it's just the three of us, Mark Bonilla and me on the acoustic guitar and Lee Sklar on the bass. And then I went back home and left for that field trip where I got sick. So this is the last thing I ever recorded before I got the meningitis.
Okay, so we're gonna basically end the show with that. But what about the album? You must have had this in your head, with your ideas and everything of it. Whatever happened to the rest of the music?
Yeah, I had about 2 albums worth of songs written. We were going to pare it down to like 12. We got 3 songs done. This one, the one you're going to play being the last one we get done. They're just sitting around cassettes in my house, unfinished as far as recording. The songs are all finished, but we may record some of them. In fact, we've talked about digging some of them out and finishing them up and doing another album.
I could see that, and if you didn't feel comfortable participating as far as musically, you have the voice, and at least you have that, right?
Yeah, the other musicians play on the CDs now, on the albums now, and I just go and sing. But they, they know what I want. I've got the songs recorded already from me when I wrote them, so they can hear them and know what I want.
When he was talking about Mark Bonilla producing, Mark Bonilla and Mark Stanley had played together in a band called Rock Island since high school. So they know each other musically inside and out.
And Michael, when do you think, do you have just kind of like a guesstimate of when the film and the whole, the concert and everything might be wrapped up?
Well, I would like it to be done in a year from now. I'm meeting with a producer in Nevada next week, like I said, and I'm hoping that she can come up with some creative ways to get us started and continuing. So, yeah, we can knock it out in a year's time if we have the funding.
Yeah. Well, I hope that happens. And so I want to thank you both so much. And Mark, you're an inspiration, and you knew how to carry on, which I think is amazing. And it's so wonderful you had support. That's great. And I also want to thank you very much for kindly offering your music for my shows.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so happy you could use them. I love your shows. I listen to every one of them. I'm there. Thank you,
great.
Martin.
So thanks. All right, so we're going to play this music on the outro. So thanks so much, everyone. And so we'll be back next week and with another show. And I am going to pull up the guests. I think it's going to be an interesting show with, hang on just a second. And it's not coming up. All right.
Well, you got the other one as an extra already, right?
Yeah, okay. So we'll be back next week.
All right.
And
okay.
All right, so thanks so much, everyone, for listening.
She's so cool and calm and steady, but she's as close as the nearest star. But I got time until she's ready. I got time, so there you are. When I see her, my heart beats faster, starts beating like a big bass drum. Every time that I walk past her, everything about her says she's the one. Everything about her says she's the one. She's like the sun dancing off the water. She's like the first time that I fell in love. I can't wait to say that I've got her. Everything about her says what I've waited for is finally come. She's the one. When I see her, my heart beats faster, starts beating like a big bass drum. Every time that I walk past her, everything about her says that she's the one. Everything about her says she's the one. She's the one that makes me forget when I see her, where I've been before. She's the one, and I've no regrets. Said I've never been loved like this before. When I see her, my heart beats faster, starts beating like a big bass drum. Every time that I walk past her, everything about her says she's the one. Everything about her says she's the one.